The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Welcome into an all-new edition of the Belly Up Fantasy Live baseball show on the Belly Up Sports Network. We are inching ever so closely to the All-Star break, but we still got a week of fantasy baseball to go before we get there. And that is why we are here tonight to get you ready for this final week leading up to the All-Star break before a few days off and then right back at it for the final playoff push. I'm Vince Stover, joined as I am every week by the senior writer at bellyupsports.com, the one and only Kevin Wilson. Hey, Kev, how you doing?
Oh, Vince, we're doing great over here. It's been, at least up here, down in Texas, they've had a lot of problems down there. But at least up here, it's been relatively cool for July. And we've had a great 4th of July weekend. And we just had some chicken and some mashed potatoes and corn on the cob. So we are happy here, and so we're doing great. How about yourself?
Hey, doing well also. Of course, thoughts and prayers to all those involved in the flooding and those that have lost life, the families left behind as well. It is a chaotic scene parts there in Texas. So thoughts out to them. Well, tonight, like I said in the intro, we are getting that final week before All-Star break. All-Star teams have been named now as well. So we're going to have some fun with some All-Star topics here tonight. We're also going to talk about the latest Major League Baseball news, the hot seats, the standings, and then, of course, the ever so popular ads and drops segment of the show as well. So let's get things rolling with segment number 1. We call it the Fantasy Burner. The Fantasy Burner is presented by Belly Up Sports. You can find 2 different ways to engulf Belly Up Sports. That is online at bellyupsports.com. All your written articles are available there. That is baseball, football, college and pro. That is hockey. That is basketball. That's everything in between is available on bellyupsports.com. And then for your visual content, go check out the Belly Up Sports YouTube channel, where you have all kinds of great shows, including this program available on the Belly Up Sports YouTube channel. All right, today we are talking Fantasy All-Stars. I'm sure they will nestle up very closely with a lot of the All-Stars that have been named in Major League Baseball, but maybe a few differences here and there as well. And there might be some that me and Kevin disagree with that should be Fantasy All-Stars, so I'll have mine. Kevin will have his. Let's start with, and by the way, I thought the National League was a lot harder to decide than the American League. The American League was pretty there. The National League had some options along the way, but let's start at, let's go American League first, and let's start at catcher. I don't think there will be any debate here. Cal Raleigh leads the way this year, 312 fantasy points. That's 104 more than the second best catcher in fantasy baseball this season. So, Kevin, I will be shocked if you differ from me on this one, but Cal Raleigh a catcher.
No, that's – if you come up with anything else, then you'll need to have a discussion here. It's Cal Raleigh, and nothing more needs to be said.
Yeah, I think he has 23 more RBIs than anybody else, any other catcher in baseball right now. And so you throw that in there with a massive amount of fantasy points. And by the way, the value, Cal Raleigh was a top 4 catcher or something like that. He was drafted 111th in our league. And so there you go. Cal Raleigh, amazing value at the All-Star break for sure. All right, first base, who you go with at first base for the American League?
Well, first base is going to be a little bit of an upset because most of the top first basemen are all National Leaguers.
Correct.
And so I went with Yandy Diaz down there in Tampa Bay because he's the number 6 first baseman at present, and he's hitting 287, 14, 51. So I went with him. He's a guy that you could have had later in the draft, so I think the value is sky high for him.
All right, so I went with Vlad Guerrero on this one, 241 fantasy points compared to Diaz's 225. I see your value, and I'll come back to Yandy Diaz in just a moment. But Vlad Guerrero is who I went with there at first base. Second base, I go Kleber Torres in Detroit. What an incredible season he's had. Obviously, he's a real-life MVP. He's a real-life all-star as well. Leading second baseman in the American League when it comes to fantasy points, just heading ahead of Jose Altuve after today's games and Michael Garcia as well. But I got Torres there at second base. How about you?
I do as well. And I wasn't that big on when he went to Detroit in the preseason, but he's proven to be everything that you could have possibly expected of him. So I'm with you on him.
Yeah, drafted 109 in our league
right.
as well. All right, let's go to third base. And it seems like every year this is the easiest one to decide. American League third baseman. I went again, Jose Ramirez in Cleveland. Any thoughts, any differing thoughts on that?
No, he's the number one fantasy third baseman. You know, he's had a terrible week this week.
Yeah,
but he's still number one. What are you looking for? He's got the stolen bases. He's hitting 300. What more could you possibly ask out of him?
And only 41 strikeouts.
That's right.
Fantasy-wise, Devers is second in points, 102 strikeouts. So you're talking about over 60 less strikeouts for Ramirez. You love that when you're a fantasy owner for sure. Think about how high Devers would be scoring if he didn't have all those strikeouts. But Ramirez, 41 strikeouts is also a great number there as well. Shortstop. Which direction did you go with shortstop?
I went with Bobby Witt.
Okay.
At short. Really not much to argue about here as far as I could see. He's got the stolen bases. He's got the RBIs, hitting almost 300. So, and happens to be my guy. So I went with him.
I'm going to argue with you. You said not much to argue about. I'm going to argue with you anyhow. Okay. I did not go Bobby Witt at shortstop. I went instead another one of your guys, just because of his last name, Jacob Wilson with the A's. And here's my reasoning behind it. Jacob Wilson, he has not scored as many as Witt. He's 30 points behind Bobby Witt. But he's also a solid 32 at-bats less than Bobby Witt Jr. And so when I looked at value a little bit. I looked at some different numbers. Strikeouts, Bobby Witt, 76. Wilson, 26. A lot less strikeouts there as well. Witt does have the stolen bases. He is a complete player, no doubt about that. And again, I'll come back to Bobby Witt in a moment. But at shortstop, I actually went Jacob Wilson over Bobby Witt, just giving him a little bit of the nod with the less strikeouts and the less at-bats and still being right there point-wise with him too. So I like it.
Yeah, you can't argue with either one of those guys. And so there it is.
Yeah, I figured last name Wilson, you wouldn't argue too much.
No.
All right, let's go to middle infielders. I came back to Bobby Witt for this one. Second base, shortstop in your fantasy lineups. Bobby Witt, scoring-wise, 252 fantasy points as of this moment. Right there, leading shortstop with the exception of one other guy we'll talk about when we get to the National League. So I got Bobby Witt here at this middle infield spot.
Okay, so this is where I would slide Wilson in there.
Yeah.
So, we're right there.
We're right there together on it. Corner infield, first and third base. I went Yandy Diaz, who you had at the first base slot. I went Vlad Guerrero at first base. Who did you go at the corner?
I would go with Guerrero.
Okay.
I think that, I know he's having a good season. It's not as great as we could possibly expect from him, but still, first, third, can't argue with him.
Yeah, he's fourth overall. The only thing that would have maybe knocked him out is if Devers didn't get traded, but he did. And so the way that it works is, well, Devers can't be in this slot. So Guerrero, it's a top four first baseman this year. Actually, he's a top four corner infielder, I should say, this year. He's number 2 currently overall at first base scoring. All right, let's go to outfield in the American League. I went Aaron Judge, Brent Rooker, and George Springer. Rooker and Judge were a little easier for me. That third slot, I was trying to battle between Buxton and Springer. I ended up going with Springer. As of today, he has more. He had a great week. And so that kind of bolstered him over top of Buxton for me. But who are your 3 outfielders?
So my 3 outfielders, of course, Judge, nothing more about that. And then I went with Riley Green from Detroit.
Sure.
Because he's at number 4 overall. You could have had him with the 129th pick. And then I did go with Byron Buxton at number 5. You could have had him off the waiver wire.
Sure.
So there's all kinds of value here. And so those are the 3 guys that I went with.
I like it. DH, I went with Riley Green. So that's why I didn't go with him as outfielder. He was higher ranked in the DH spot. Well, not necessarily, but yeah, basically. So anyways, Riley Green, I made sure he got in there as well. Who'd you throw at American League DH?
If it hadn't been for the trade, there would be a different player here, but he's now in the National League. So I went with Brett Rooker as my DH.
I like it.
And it's difficult to find a guy who just DHs.
Right.
And he's qualified in the outfield, but he does DH, and he's the number 3 DH, and he plays in that minor league park, and so he puts bat on ball.
Yeah. So you basically have the exact same guys, maybe some different orders on them as well from there on that side. And again, this is Fantasy All-Stars, not MLB All-Stars. All right, let's go. We're going to go 3 starting pitchers in the American League. And again, I felt like this was relatively easy, but there might be some disagreement. So go ahead and give me your 3 starting pitchers.
Okay, so I went with Tarek Skobel. Nothing more needs to be said about that. And went with Fried from the New York Yankees. And then I went with Hunter Brown from the Houston Astros because he's number 4. You could have had him at number 95. And he's got a 1.82 ERA, so he's bringing it. The value here is through the roof, so I went with him.
Okay. I went Skubal, Fried, and Garrett Crochet as my 3. Honorable mention, I had Hunter Brown and Jacob deGrom that I was really battling with. And so on those, but I just felt like those 3 guys earned it. Crochet was one of those guys. We'll see how he finishes the season still. We had a lot of conversation about him preseason, as far as new place, different expectations, all those kinds of things. So far, he's handled it great. And he's been a steady arm for your fantasy teams. All right, relief pitcher. We're only doing one of the relief pitchers. I got Josh Hader, just dominating the AL right now, and that was my choice.
He's mine as well. And I was looking, the relief pitchers have had a rough year. Really, especially when it comes to the closer position.
Closers, yeah.
Most of these guys that are in the top 5 are also starters. And so I completely discounted that.
I did as well, yep.
And so Josh Hader is the easy selection here.
Yeah, I agree. On the American League side, we're talking about guys who save games. Hader is far and above the best. Then you've got maybe Estevez from Kansas City, but point-wise, he's way down the list on there as well. Hoffman in Toronto, but way down to the point value list as well. So Hader has been dominant, especially from a saves closer standpoint. 5 wins helps out a lot. So 5 wins and 25 saves on the season. He does have 1 loss on the season as well, but his ERA is at 1.80, a whip at 0.73. He's been phenomenal. And so an easy choice there. All right, let's flip. Did you have any honorable mention guys? Any guys you wanted to mention on the American League side?
I think that pretty much cuts it.
Okay, let's go to the National League then. National League Fantasy All-Stars catcher. I'm intrigued to know where you go with this one, Kevin. Who's your catcher for the National League?
My catcher is, and you might find this hard to believe, but I'm going with Hunter Goodman out of the Colorado Rockies. And you don't want too many Rockies other than this guy on your roster. But he is, of course, he's a catcher, outfield, DH, and he's currently number 10 catcher in fantasy. And is a guy that you could have had off the waiver wire, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
But he's hitting 281 with 16 homers and 50 RBIs. In a sorry lineup that he's hitting in, this guy is gold right now.
Yeah, he's also got 44 runs to go along with those 50 RBIs. I went Goodman also. Will Smith was obviously the other guy to consider. But I like Hunter Goodman a lot.
The value for Goodman's way higher than Smith to me.
Yeah, Hunter. Especially with your value stuff, you've got multiple eligibility that throws in there too, and just came out of nowhere for fantasy owners. And so, I like that one too. All right, first base in the National League. I went with the polar bear, Pete Alonso. first in scoring, especially at first base this year and overall. And I went with him. What about you?
I did as well, and we talked about him before the season began. What do we make out of this guy? And he's been everything that you could possibly have asked for at first base.
Yeah, I'll throw in Michael Busch just for the fun of it here. He's not quite there. He's got a few people to jump, but again, we're talking about values and things of that nature. What he's been doing as of late has been really, really good too. And so it's just worth mentioning his name at the very least. Second base, probably the most crowded position for the National League when you come to fantasy all-stars. Who did you go with at second base?
I went with Ketel Marte because he's the number one second baseman, and he's dealt with some injuries and some absolutely rude fan that was yelling about his mother and everything else. And he's overcome that, and he is the number one fantasy second baseman. So the value is maybe a little lower than some of these guys, but just because of what he's come through, I'm going with him.
Well, so I went with Marte also, and the other two I was considering were Nico Horner and Luis Arias, who still qualifies as second base. As of today, as of this moment, Horner has one more point than Ketel Marte, but Ketel Marte has had almost 100 less at-bats than Nico Horner, and he's still right there with them at 218 fantasy points, averaging 3.5 compared to Horner's 2.5 and Arias' 2.6 as well. What he's doing, 19 home runs from your second baseman, is something you absolutely love. He's got the RBIs. He's getting walks as well. Striking out, sure, who doesn't these days? Only a couple stolen bases, but what he's been able to do in limited action this season is absolutely phenomenal. I went with Ketel Marte as well. All right, third base. I'm intrigued to see where you go with this one, too. Where do you go with third base?
Well, I would pretty much rather chew on broken glass than praise anything on the Padres, but Manny Machado takes this for me. And what are you looking for out of our third baseman? He hits almost 300. He's got the homers. He's got the RBIs. And I really like what he is as a fantasy guy. And so I went with Manny Machado.
All right. So I did not go with Machado. I stayed with the Arizona Diamondbacks and Eugenio Suarez for this spot. 252, 28 home runs, 73 RBIs. He even threw in one stolen base just for the fun of it. And Suarez has been really, really solid this season. Drafted 190 overall in our league. And phenomenal. Machado, very good. I'll bring him up here in just a second again. Let's go to shortstop. Well, let me ask you this, and it might come up again in a second, but did you battle with Rafael Devers here at third base as well?
I did, and he doesn't have as much at bats in the National League, but I wrote his name down first.
Okay.
And then I thought, well, okay, but he's more a DH.
Yeah.
So I went with Machado because he's the more complete player.
Yeah, I have a hard time when you just switch division. It's not his fault, obviously, but you just switch conferences, and I'm not going to throw. I just, it's just whatever. It's not a big deal. Nobody cares. It's just Vincent Kevin's All-Stars, but
right.
still fantasy All-Stars. But still, I really like Devers. I put his name down beside Suarez as consideration, but I just couldn't do it. Shortstop here. Where did you go shortstop in the National League?
Okay, so we're talking about Arizona, and this is really, really surprising because all these all-stars that we're talking about, but yet they have sunk.
Yes.
And my shortstop is Geraldo Perdomo.
Yeah.
He is, when I was checking this out, was the number one fantasy shortstop. Number one. Okay. And he's got stolen bases, 13. He scored runs. He's got some RBIs, pretty good, 59 for a shortstop. So talk about value. This guy has it all over the place. So I went with him.
Yeah, Perdomo was a free agent as well, undrafted free agent in our fantasy league. Like you said, number one overall. I was sitting there going, I went Marte, I went Suarez, and I went Perdomo, and I said the same thing that you said. Wait a second, how do they have three guys performing so well and are yet stinking it up in real life? as a team, and that's why you won't see any pitchers from Arizona on our National League All-Star fantasy team here as well. All right, let's go to the middle infielder, second base, shortstop. And this, I thought it was a really hard pick between these two guys to some degree, but Perdomo pushed himself over the top. I got Elly De La Cruz as my guy here in the middle. How about you?
I do as well, and he would probably win this if he wasn't striking out 780 times. But even so, he's got 249 fantasy points, which leads the way as far as points are concerned. And so I'll take him.
Yeah, Elly De La Cruz, 50 more strikeouts, 50 more strikeouts than Perdomo.
Yeah.
You take half of those away, and it's a whole different story, right?
So absolutely.
So, yeah, I like that one. Then on the corner infield, I went Machado on first, third base spot. Again, really, really close to Eugenio Suarez points-wise and things like that also. So I went with him at the corner. Who did you have at the corner?
So you talked about Suarez, and I've been down with him for the last, 3 years now?
Yes.
And if he hadn't had the strikeouts he has, then I'd be talking a different story with him. He's hitting home runs. It seems like you sit down and there he is hitting a 3-run shot or a full grand slam or something like that. So I like him a lot. If he would just cut down the strikeouts, then I would really like it.
But is he your corner guy?
He is.
Okay. All right. Just making sure. All right. Let's go to outfield. I feel like Tucker and Soto are locks. But I'm curious to see who else, and maybe they're not locks for you. They were for me. Yeah. Kyle Tucker and Juan Soto are in. Who else do you have, or do you have?
Well, Kyle Tucker is an easy pick. Then I went with James Wood.
Okay,
this guy has been hitting a ton, and the lineup that he's in. And then I went with Seiya Suzuki out of Chicago, who has 75 RBIs. And you could have had this guy off the waiver wire, most likely, or a late round draft pick. So the value for him is way over the top. And so I went with him.
Both of us showing massive disrespect to Pete Crow Armstrong in these all-star rankings, because I don't have PCA in. I had Josh Wood as an honorable mention, and it's probably not fair, but I put Corbin Carroll in because, again, you go to the injury side of things, and I'm going to bust on this in a moment when we get to Ronald Acuña in real life. But Corbin Carroll missing time, and yet still one of the best outfielders in fantasy baseball this season. With only 295 at-bats, he's still a top 10 fantasy outfielder. He's got the home runs rolling, 20 home runs already this season. The RBIs are low at 44.
Well, he's a leadoff hitter.
Yes, exactly. So that's where you can go into that. 10 stolen bases already as well. PCA and Josh Wood I put down. I ended up going with Carroll. Probably if I didn't hate the Cubs so much, I probably would have put PCA in there. But I already put Kyle Tucker. What more can you ask of me? So, so that's where I am with those. All right, starting pitchers. Who do you? Oh no, I'm sorry. DH Shohei Ohtani. I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about there.
Nothing more needs to be discussed with that. So,
all right, very good. Let's go to pitchers now. I went. I had a hard time with the National League pitchers a little bit too. I ended up going Zach Wheeler, which was easy, and then I went Paul Skeens and Logan Webb. I really like Schwellenbach. He gets injured. Skeens had another great performance today. So I ended up going Skeens and Logan Webb. I also, by the way, want to mention Robbie Ray, who's had a really, really good season, but Webb's been better. So I went with those three. What about you?
I went with the exact same three.
Okay.
And, when it comes to Skeens, he would be far and away. He'd be right up there with Tarek Skubal, but he gave up a run today. Guess what? He was the losing pitcher.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing. If you can argue whether wins are fair, whatever, but it's still a stat that they use awfully much in the majors. So it counts in fantasy. He has a losing record. That's not his fault, of course. But even so, I've got him. I've got Logan Webb, and Zach Wheeler showed today what he is capable of doing. So those three guys are my picks.
When you look at Skeens. First of all, the Pirates have been shut out 4 times this season. When
Including
Skeens
today.
Yeah, when Skeens was pitching. So you look at his 7 losses, 4 of those were shutouts by the other team. And I don't know. I don't know that he took the loss in all 4 of those. I shouldn't say that, I guess. But either way, not good. My one problem that could be controlled a little bit more by Skeens. Uncontrollable by him, a 4-7 record. It's not on him. He's got a 1.94 ERA. He's doing everything that he can. He can't score runs. So that's not on him. But he has not been getting a lot of quality starts as of late. So back on, let's see here, in the month of June and July, he opened up the month of June against Houston with 8 innings, Philadelphia 7.2 innings. Then he had a 5-inning outing against Chicago, 6 innings against Detroit, and in his last 3 starts, he went 4 innings against Milwaukee, 5 against St. Louis, and 5 against Seattle. I need Skeens. He's still an all-star. He's still an amazing pitcher, but I need him to go 6+ innings, 6.2, something like that, where they bring in a guy to get the final out maybe, or he gets up to 7, whatever it may be. I need more than 5 innings out of Paul Skeens.
I agree with that. And it seems like they're babying him more this year than they did last year, which really surprises me.
Yeah.
And because he's got a year under his belt, he's older, but as you mentioned, 5 innings, gave up a run. That's awesome. But you need to go 6 or 7 innings and give up a run.
Yeah.
Because if you go, that's at least 6 more fantasy points.
Yeah.
If you don't strike out anybody else. So I'm with you with that.
All right, and then let's go to relief pitcher. Who do you have for the National League relief pitcher all-star?
All right, so this was really, really tough because the pitcher I'm going to go with is Jason Adam.
Oh, okay.
Out of San Diego. He's not the closer, but he's the number 7 relief pitcher in fantasy, as he's got a lot of holds. And so I went with him. Edwin Diaz at number 10 was my second pick, and because he's got 18 saves. But as far as being the better value, Jason Adam takes it for me.
Okay. Adam also 6 wins, by the way.
That's
to go
right.
with his 19 saves. So I went with Milwaukee Brewers Abner Uribe. Abner Uribe, 254 fantasy points. That is 29 more than Jason Adam. He's also someone that I tried to tell everybody about when he came off his suspension. He is the setup guy in Milwaukee. He's getting the 8th inning, 25 holds, 2 wins, 1 loss, 1 save. He also has 1 blown save, as does Jason Adam as well. Uribe has locked in the 8th inning for Milwaukee and has been doing a phenomenal job at it. He leads all National League relief pitchers in fantasy points. That's even over like the Holmes of Atlanta, who are listed as a relief pitcher / starting pitcher. And I absolutely am enamored by and love Abner Uribe and love that he's getting my fantasy team some points this year as well. Recently acquired him in a league as well, which I was very excited about in that one too. So Abner Uribe, shout out to you, my friend. You are my NL All-Star relief pitcher. You're welcome on the show anytime to come.
That's right.
It, of course, as well. All right. Any other names you want to throw out there from the National League?
Nope, I think we've covered it.
All right. Very good. We got a bunch to talk about with the Major League Baseball news. And so that is our first segment, the Fantasy Burner, presented by Belly Up Sports. All right. Let's head into segment number 2. We call it the Hot Corner. The Hot Corner is presented by Righteous Felon Jerky. Join the flavor revolution at righteousfelon.com. Use the promo code BELLYUP. You're going to get 15% off your purchase, and you will not regret it. I promise you. All right, let's get into a few things. Let's start with the All-Stars. We've been talking All-Stars here. Let's talk about the rosters. Did anything that stood out from you in the rosters that you said, yeah, that shouldn't have been, or whatever it may be, you know, questions you had regarding the rosters for the American League or the National League?
Well, the only thing that really brought a question to my mind was Kyle Stowers from the Miami Marlins.
Sure.
Okay, I know why he's there because every team has to have a representative, which we have discussed. And if that should be the case or not, I don't think it is. But he's on there. And what has he done to earn an all-star bid? I don't see it. I like him as far as being a guy you can add to your fantasy team. But
Right.
being an all-star in real life, that I have a real hard time buying that.
So let me ask you this. Who would you go in place of Stowers off Miami with having to have somebody from Miami?
If you have, well, that's the thing. There's probably there's nobody else
Right.
that you could put on there reasonably so that that you could say, okay, he's better.
Yeah, because you've got Eduardo Cabrera, Edward Cabrera, that he's been good at games, but again, who you knocking out pitcher wise?
That's always the issue. Who you're going to have to subtract to add
right
somebody like that.
Lopez has been, decent at second base, but it's too crowded at second base for the National League to put Lopez in. So it's, throwing an outfielder, you can make do with that. Maybe you could have gone with the catcher, but overall you're limited on options when it came to Miami. So that's always one that I think is questionable when you get to those kinds of things for sure. From there. And then let's talk about Javi Baez. He's the first player, I believe, to start in 3 different positions in the All-Star game. He's got outfield, shortstop, and second base now. Again, what he's done in Detroit this season has been really solid, so I think that's pretty cool too.
It is pretty cool. I would say it's been a great season. It's been one of those seasons. Well, I've talked about him before, where I thought he had one foot in the grave.
Yeah.
But he's come back. But as far as being an all-star, not sure I'm going to get on that train.
What about only one New York Yankee in the lineup as a starter?
Well, it's okay. So I can buy that.
Yeah.
Because they have really scuffled offensively. So who are we going to put in there? Felipe? No. And I liked what Paul Goldschmidt started to do, but he's taking the foot off the gas there. And so who else are you going to put in there in their starting lineup?
Yeah.
I'm not seeing it.
My only argument that I had against any players, really, I didn't think Ronald Acuña should have been there as a starting outfielder. I know fan vote has a big part to do with this as well, but he hasn't played enough. He's had a very good season when he's been in. There's just guys that have been putting it in all season long that are getting snubbed, or at least now they're getting pushed back to the bench. But I'm just not, and I put Corbin Carroll in my NL All-Stars for fantasy, so I get it. But that's one I really didn't like. I didn't really like Ronald Acuña being there in the outfield, especially to start. But I think this should have been the year he took off the All-Star game and let the people who've been playing in. I don't know. That's my thoughts. Any thoughts on Acuña?
I can the game's in Atlanta this year.
Yeah.
And so that plays heavily into it, I think. And so, okay, I can buy that because it was May when he came back.
Right.
And that's still a little short of time, but not that bad. If he'd come back in like mid-June, that would be a different conversation. Sure. I suspect that even if he had come back in mid-June, he'd still be where he is now.
Yeah.
And so that would be a different conversation. And he's an electrifying player, so I'm really okay with him being there.
Okay. I'm trying to think. I don't really see anybody else that I've got, much disagreement with. Really, that was kind of it for me. I thought overall it was a pretty simple selection for these guys this year overall.
I agree, and usually, well, not maybe usually, but there have been times where you're like, what is this?
Yeah.
And so not really saying that this year, given that we can't argue, like I said, with Goodman being on the team.
Right.
He is a quality player. He deserves to be there, especially at the catcher position. So nobody can argue, well, we had to put a Rocky on there and he's, hitting 227 or any of that.
Yeah.
So I'm certainly okay because he's on my fantasy team, so I'm certainly okay with that.
Sure. All right, let's talk about some of these. I don't want to go through all the standings, but a couple things of note. First of all, Brandon Woodruff returns after 2 years away due to injuries, and he looked great. I didn't expect that at all. I thought maybe he'd go 4 innings or so, and maybe just have some good things and some negative things. 6 innings, 8 strikeouts, 1 earned run. He gets the win. Granted, it's against Miami, but still, you got to play whoever you got to play. And really excited to see Brandon Woodruff back and excited for what he brings to the rotation for Milwaukee, especially if he's going to pitch like that. He looked really, really sharp today. So welcome back, Big Woo, for Milwaukee. But what I really want to discuss is in the AL East and the AL Central. We'll start with the AL East. Toronto. Hello, Toronto. First place. I think they were 3rd place last week when we did this show.
They were, and that's what happens when you have a 4-game sweep of the Yankees.
Yeah,
and they were 1 game back when they started that series, and all of a sudden they come out of it 3 games up.
Right, 8-game win streak overall, which is great. But when you sweep someone in your division, that's even better. And Toronto now 3 games up on the Yankees and the Rays, 6.5 up on Boston as well. And just a crazy week for Toronto. If they can keep it rolling through the rest of this week, it'll mean some positive things for them in the turn at the All-Star break, of course, as well. And then we got to talk about Cleveland. I mean, 15 straight losses. I think they've scored 5 runs maybe in these 15 losses. I forget. It's not been very many runs as well. And I mean, they went from contenders to completely out of the race just like that. And Detroit now 13.5 games up on Minnesota, 14 games up on Kansas City, 15.5 up on Cleveland. I mean, Detroit was already running away with the division, but now they have literally run away with the division. Just like that. It seems like this division is done with. Dunzo, and no coming back as well. What happened to Cleveland?
I don't know. And so you talk about hot seats. We'll get into that in a second. But today is a typical. They faced Tarek Skubal.
Yeah.
Today, and so they didn't score off of him, but their pitcher pitches and matches him with zeros, and then they score a run in the 8th inning. All they have to do is close out the game, and they win. Well, guess what? They did not. And they went to extra innings, and the whole thing melted down. So if you sit there and your opposing pitcher duels with Tarek Skubal, pitch per pitch, that's the game you have to win. Right. And they just didn't.
Their last win came against the A's, I believe, right? I'm trying to see if that's correct. Yeah, against the A's. And that was on the 22nd of June. Then they beat the Blue Jays on the 25th. I apologize. Swept by the Cardinals. Then they just keep getting swept here and there and everywhere after that. Swept by the Cubs, swept by the Tigers now here in this thing. They won. They've got Houston and Chicago White Sox this week, and they need to make the most. They got 4 games against the White Sox this week before the All-Star break. They need to end this run on a 4-game win streak against Chicago and do some damage there for sure. It's still, I don't think, going to matter when it comes to the playoffs, but I just cannot believe how fast they have slid down the ranks as well. You look at these division races. Houston's up 7 games. Detroit's up 13.5 games. Toronto's up 3. Dodgers up 7.5. Phillies up 1.5 on the Mets. And Chicago Cubs up 3.5 on the Brewers. The Cubs are getting ready to win another one, so that'll boost up slightly as well. So, when we get to the All-Star break, you will kind of reset everything. When we look at the playoff races, we'll talk seriously about the wild cards at that point. But there's very few fun division races. There will still be a lot of fun wild card races, though.
Yeah, the wild card, I was really opposed to all these wild cards when they were first discussing this, but if it wasn't for the wild card, there'd be really nothing to watch.
Right.
Especially in the American League.
Right. Very much.
So that adds some, teams of interest there. So we have to have this wild card, otherwise it would be a disaster all the way around. So it's something that we could still talk about. The playoffs are still going to loom large, so we've got some things to still talk about coming down the stretch.
For sure. For sure. All right, let's talk about managers on the hot seat. We've already seen a couple managers let go, Pirates and Colorado, and there's somebody else too, Baltimore as well. And then today, the Nationals announced that they are letting go of their manager and general manager as well, making changes. And so as we approach the All-Star break, let's talk about some other managers on the hot seat right now in Major League Baseball. And Kevin, I don't know, who are you thinking is on the hot seat right now?
Well, we just talked about it. Cleveland, Stephen Vogt, however you pronounce that. They've lost every game for a month and a half or so. And so he's definitely on the hot seat. The one that I think is interesting, the most interesting, is what about the Atlanta Braves?
Yeah.
Okay. Because Brian Snitker, is that how you pronounce his name?
Yeah.
Won a World Series.
Yeah.
But so did Dave Martinez. And he got fired today. Yeah. So winning, we've seen that before where you win a couple years ago and then you're out on the street. And Atlanta, they're 11 games below 500 and 13 and a half games out of first.
Yeah.
There's no way anyone could have predicted this before the season began, even when they started 0-7. And so the seat's got to be a little warm, I would suspect, down there in Atlanta.
Yeah, and you're going into All-Star break in Atlanta, and and you can't muster up more than a guy who's been hurt for most of the season as your All-Star, your big stud there, and you got too much talent, too much things going on in Atlanta. I think Brian Snitker has to be on the hot seat. Like, I don't know how you can. I know they've had injury issues. They may need to fire training guys. They may need to fire the whole stinking staff and start fresh because there's too much talent for them to have fallen the way that they've fallen. Even with the injuries they've had, you just have to be able to tread water until your guys get back. And then your guys get back and you're still not making up ground. So, yeah, I agree with you 100%. Really, him and Torey Lovullo from Arizona were the two main ones.
Yeah.
Because same thing, Arizona's got, we talked about it. They got four guys in the All-Star game. They're doing all these things, and then their win-loss record is horrendous. Granted, it's all pitching. Corbin Burns gets hurt. Gallen, Lord knows what's happening to him, as well. And they've got this Ryan Nelson who's been phenomenal. Over the last 12 months, I saw this stat the other day. Nelson has been the best pitcher in Arizona over the last 12 months. Just under a 3. I forget what the ERA was, 3.6 maybe ERA, over 21 starts. By far the best pitcher in Arizona. So something has to give in Arizona. Yeah. Something has to give in Atlanta. Something has to give in Cleveland. I agree with you there, Stephen Vogt, as well, even though he's only on year 2 as full-time manager there. But or Vogt, I believe is how you say that. And
okay.
Yeah, these are the guys, the teams that are supposed to be winning that are losing. How can you not be on the hot seat right now?
Exactly. And Cleveland is a team that you and I both believed in. And they're on this losing streak, but I got it right here. They won 3 out of 4 games before this losing streak happened. But then everything just comes off the rails.
Yeah.
And you can't ignore this losing streak.
Right.
And you can't ignore the fact that they're, what was it you said, 13 and a half games, whatever it was you just said.
Yeah.
I got it right there. It doesn't matter. They're out of it.
Yeah.
And everybody thought, and we thought, that they would be battling for the division. And even though we thought the AL Central was going to be the best division in baseball, it has not happened. The other teams have fallen back, and Cleveland has not taken advantage of it at all. And so, I'm sorry, Steven. You might need to make sure that you, if you go out on a road trip, make sure everything's packed in your office because you might not have one when you get back.
Well, and I talked about they're playing the White Sox this week, and they got 4 games against them. It's in Chicago. Cleveland 15.5 games back. And
15 and a
by
half.
the way, Chicago's been winning some baseball games here and
They
there.
have.
They've won 5 of their last 10. Again, not great still. There's it is what it is, but it's not going to be a pushover win for Cleveland. And so they've got to come in and figure some things out very, very quickly. They are minus 59 in run differential right now, which is, by the way, not good in case you didn't understand that. The A's have much worse. They're minus 136. White Sox are worse at minus 84. Orioles at minus 82. Rockies minus 229. Yikes. And Nats at minus 86. I mean, you just can't be down there with those teams.
No, that's why they're on the street. Their managers are already on the street.
Yeah.
So you might be next.
I agree. All right. Anything else? Major League Baseball news?
Let's see. We need a Clayton Kershaw becomes the 4th left-hander ever to have 3,000 strikeouts.
Yes.
Probably. I'm going to say probably. I'll say definitely give to the last pitcher to accomplish that.
Okay.
And things have gone pretty sorry for the Yankees, but this just indicates how sorry things have been. You see where Aaron Judge got hit in the face by a baseball by his own player.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not going well. Clark Schmidt went on the IL, so that's not going well.
Yeah.
And thought we should give a special shout out to Bobby Jenks, the closer for the Chicago White Sox, who passed away this week.
Yeah.
He was the closer when they won the World Series, but he passed away this week. So I was sorry to hear about that. He was only 44 years old. And so that's always a sad thing when that happens. But that was pretty much what I wanted to bring up.
All right. Very good. Thank you for adding that in. All right. Let's, that is segment 2, the Hot Corner, presented by Righteous Felon Jerky. Join the flavor revolution at righteousfelon.com. Use the promo code BELLYUP. You're going to get 15% off your purchase. All right. Let's head into our final segment. We call it the Fantasy Focus. Fantasy Focus presented by SeatGeek. Go to SeatGeek.com. Use the promo code BELLYUPSports. You're going to get $20 off your purchase. Now's the time to make your plans for the rest of the baseball season, which games you're going to get to, and how you're going to get those tickets. Well, you might as well use SeatGeek. And again, the promo code is BellyUpSports for $20 off your purchase. All right, Kevin, we're going waiver wire ads and drops.
Okay.
I felt positive today to do drops. So do you have anybody?
I have a couple guys. One is the guy that you and I have brought up before, and that's Ben Casparius of the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah.
We liked that he was following Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
But he's given up 6 runs each in his last 2 appearances, -4 and -8 fantasy points. Sorry, you've got to go. He might be ticketed for AAA after something like that. And then I know we like to spit this guy's name, and we talked about Atlanta being on the hot seat. Well, Marcell Ozuna is not helping. And how is he not helping? He's the DH, but guess what? He's not hitting.
Yeah.
Okay. 6 for 43. He's 1 for his last 20. He's got no home runs in his last 15 games, 3 runs scored, and 1 RBI. And all he has is DH.
Yeah.
You cannot have this guy on your fantasy team if all he's driven in is 1 run in the last 15 games. So we don't like him anyway. And so, say la vie to him.
I like it a lot. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. I like it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll just do that.
All right, let's go to additions this week. Who do we need to add this week in fantasy baseball as we head to that? We get this weird week where we go Sunday. There's going Sunday to Sunday in most leagues, I think, or maybe the next.
I believe it might be. Well,
check
hold
your
on.
scoring.
I can confirm that information as we're discussing.
The All-Star break is next week, and
right.
So you get through the whole week. There is game Sunday, and the All-Star game is Tuesday.
Right.
Check your scoring on your leagues to see
where. That's right. That's where you need to be aware of your scoring, as we're talking about. And let me see here. So the next is July 7th through the 20th. So it goes for 2 weeks, basically.
Yeah.
This scoring period goes for 2 weeks. So,
Okay, there you go.
All right. Okay, so that's what you come here for, is to get live information.
Sadly, I did not plan out that far for your waiver wire ads. I'm sure there's some pitchers that you could pick up that are going to pick after the All-Star break that are still included in your week of your matchup. But nonetheless, it is what it is. All right, let's get into our ads this week. Who's the first guy we need to add?
I'm going to go with, Houston is on fire. The Astros, they swept my Dodgers, including giving them the worst loss in the history of Dodger Stadium. And one of the reasons is because of Jake Myers. He's the outfielder out there. He's got 7.3% rostered. Hits in 12 of his last 15 games. He's hitting 308. He's got 14 stolen bases, 47 runs. And he's scored 12 runs in those 15 games. So this dude is bringing it, and he is available. So if you need outfield help, I would check him first.
Check before you add him. He got injured today, and I have no idea what the injury is. So check up on that. He got pulled early. He was 1 of 2 in today's game against the Dodgers. But keep an eye out for that. I went to check real quick and do not see what the injury is, but was pulled today. So make sure before you pick him up, you get confirmation on what that injury was. But I've had Jake Myers on my team in one of our leagues, Kevin. Now I can tell you, I picked him up. No, I can't tell you. Maybe I drafted him. No, there we go. Picked him up on May the 6th. And I've been in on Jake Myers in deep leagues, especially for a while now. But yes, he's been playing some really good baseball, multiple hits and multiple games against good teams, against bad teams. It doesn't matter. I like Jake Myers in the outfield as well. Health dependent, of course, on that. All right. One of the things I really like in fantasy baseball is a veteran that doesn't get drafted or gets drafted really low, and all of a sudden he finds his groove. And when a veteran finds his groove, I think there's so much value in that. And so the veteran I'm discussing is Trevor Story in Boston. He is currently 19.1% rostered in ESPN leagues. On the season, he's batting .252, 14 home runs, 14 stolen bases as well. And as of late, he's been on it. Also, really this month so far in the 5 games this month against Cincinnati, he went 1 for 4, 3 for 4. Then against Washington, 4 for 5, 1 for 4, and 1 for 4. He's got 3 home runs in that setting as well. Boston, some of their hitters are doing some really good things right now. And Trevor Story, again, he's a been there, done that guy. And he hasn't been there, done that recently. But the fact that he's finding his groove, it gives me some confidence to go with him, maybe over some other guys that haven't done it like he has done it before. So Trevor Story playing in a good ballpark, on a good team, and he's doing some good things fantasy wise, including 2 double-digit point outings in his last 6 games. So that's who I'm going to first of all this week, Trevor Story in Boston.
Okay, so I'm going to go with his Boston teammate, and that's Ceddanne Rafaela.
Yeah, that was my next one.
I hope I have that correct. Okay. Outfield shortstop, so you got to like that combination. 15.2% rostered, 2 or more hits in 3 of his last 4 games. All right, runs in 4 straight. He hit a home run yesterday. He hit a home run today. Drove 5 runs in those 2 games, and it has hits of 8 of 9 games. So when you're talking about a guy who's hot, this dude is it. You could slide him into a bunch of spots in your lineup. So I'm going with Rafaela.
Yeah, 3 of his last 4 games have been multiple hits. And you said the home runs in there too. He's got 11 stolen bases on the year. When he came up, it was a big deal. People paid attention to it. He got picked up in a lot of leagues at that point, but only 15.7% rostered really blows my mind for this guy. Wilyer Abreu right now has been, he's been missing games. They've only been throwing him against, I think, right-handers. And Abreu's had some really good games, and yet he's still not playing every day. Well, Rafaela is, and he's doing the job, or he's not playing every day, but he's playing. Yes, he is. He's playing every day. So stick with him. And only 15% rostered blows my mind. He was also on my list this week for ads, so I really like that one, Kevin. I'm with you on that one. Who's another one you got for us?
So another one is Addison Barger. We talked about Toronto, and they're hot. Well, he plays third base in the outfield, so that's another nice plus. He's at 16.9% rostered. On Wednesday, he was 2 for 4 off the homer. On Thursday, 3 for 4, home run. 2 hits Saturday, hits in 9 of his last 11 games. What more could you ask for as far as a guy that's on fire? This is it. Toronto's on fire. and their offense is on fire. So this guy needs, if you need third base or outfield help, this is the guy to look to.
I like that one as well, Kevin. And I'm going to stick with Toronto, but I'm going to go to the pitching side of things and give you Eric Lauer this week. Eric Lauer, 4-1 on the year, 2.65 ERA. In his last start, he went 6 innings, 2 earned runs, 6 strikeouts against the Angels. On Wednesday, he faces off against the Chicago White Sox, which I love that matchup. And so the way Toronto's playing, and they're giving run support to their pitchers, he finally gets himself a quality start. He's done some bullpen pitching. That's long relief. He's gotten some starts in there as well, and he's scheduled to start on Wednesday at Chicago. I love it for Toronto. And so, Eric Lauer for me is a must pick up this week.
Okay, so we talk a lot about how matchups are vital when we're talking about streaming. And so, unbelievably enough, I've got 2 Los Angeles Angel pitchers.
Okay.
Okay, the first one is Kyle Hendricks at 2.2% rostered. Okay, Washington, he pitched 5 innings, 1 run, 5 hits. And then at Toronto, the team that's on fire, 5 1/3 innings, 3 runs, 4 hits with no base on balls. Well, on Wednesday, he faces the Texas Rangers at home. So I'm going with him. And the other LA pitcher is a little more rostered at 20.9%, but that's Jose Soriano. And he pitches Tuesday against those same Rangers, the same Ranger team that can't hit their way out of a paper bag. And so those 2 matchups, normally I would say LA pitchers. I'm not doing that, but the matchups are solid here, so I'm going with those 2 guys.
I like it. My last guy is one of the other things we talk about is multiple position eligibility. And this guy has that. Max Muncy of the A's, not the old Max Muncy.
Well, that's good because he's not playing.
Yeah. Max Muncy of the A's, shortstop, second base, third base eligible in ESPN leagues, 1.6% rostered. He's had a really good closeout here, start of the month, I suppose. Against San Francisco last night wasn't great, -1 fantasy points. But before that, 5 when he went 2 for 4 against Tampa. He had a 6-pointer with a home run, a 7-pointer with a home run as well. Then it'd be closing out leading up to the All-Star break. It's all home games for the A's. They're playing in that minor league stadium. So you got to like that as well. 221 is his batting average, 7 home runs, 1 stolen base, 20 RBIs. He's not the top of the crop when you're talking about everything, but if you need someone that you can kind of put in as guys get injured, or you're looking to fill some different spots from guys, you got guys that aren't playing every day that you're trying to keep on your roster. Muncy's a great one to throw in there. And again, he's got a bunch of home games coming up leading up to the All-Star break. He'll be playing against the Braves at home. And then right after the All-Star break is when he's got the Blue Jays at home. No, I'm sorry. That's leading up to it. So he's got all the way up to the All-Star break is at home against the Blue Jays and the Braves. And then when he comes out of the All-Star break, he's got the Guardians and Rangers, on the road. So it might just be a week-long pickup for Max Muncy, and you let him go again. But I like him for this week being at home this much.
Okay, so staying with the matchups, I'm going to go with Brian Bello of the Boston Red Sox, another Red Sox player, okay, at 12.7%, 4-3 with a 3.42 on Tuesday, 5 innings, 2 runs, but just 1 hit and 1 walk. But before that, he pitched into the 6th inning and 5 straight games.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Tuesday, guess who he goes up against? That would be the Colorado Rockies. And we've talked about this before. Any pitcher that goes up against the Colorado Rockies, especially on the road, definitely is streamer worthy. And so this is it right here. So he's at the top of my list of pitchers if you're streaming, when you should be, unless you're a superstar fantasy player and don't need a streamer. But other than that, this guy goes to the right at the top of my list.
Kevin, I don't think he's a streamer. I think he needs to be on rosters.
That's probably true.
Across the board. Brian Bello, first of all, he doesn't have a great track record. He's not been around that long, but this is a top prospect that came up, pitched well, pitched decent, whatever it may be. start off the year wasn't great, but ever since June has hit, things turned around for Brian Bello. Obviously, the Angels, you say, okay, whatever, big deal. But he goes against Tampa, 6.1 innings, only 3 earned runs. Against the Yankees, 7 innings, no earned runs. Against the Giants, 6 innings, 1 earned run. Against Toronto, who's been crazy hot, 6 innings, 3 earned runs. And against Cincy this week, 5 innings, 2 earned runs. Like Brian Bello is at the very least the third best pitcher in Boston right now. And in my personal opinion, he is far more than a streamer. If he's available in your league, yes, this week against the Rockies, you want him on your roster. I don't say drop him when you're done. I say this is a guy you can hold on to and let him ride out the rest of your season on your roster because I think he is good enough to do just that. So I love the Brian Bello pickup.
Okay, so there you go. So don't know who would pitch after that. Doesn't really matter because the All-Star break, but he's definitely a pickup this week, if nothing else.
Yeah. Do you have any other guys you want to mention?
I'm going to go with Cade Horton of the Chicago Cubs here. 5.9% rostered. Tuesday against Cleveland. They stink. We know that, so don't really need to get into that. But on Wednesday, he goes up against the Minnesota Twins, who are also pretty stinky at the present moment. And so this guy is more available than some of these other pitchers that I've talked about. All of them, as a matter of fact. He's more available. And so I like this matchup on Wednesday. And if he's available, I would certainly look to add him.
Very cool. Going back to your question about Brian Bello, he is starting against Tampa on the 13th as well. Tampa at Boston.
Okay.
For that matchup leading into
there you go.
So you get that one also for you.
Okay, that's not so great a matchup, but maybe so.
I still like it. I'm all in on it for sure from there. All right. Very good. Very good. All right. So a couple housekeeping notes. First of all, we will not have a show next week. No show next week. We are taking the week of vacation basically from the show with the All-Star game happening and all that kind of stuff. But we will be back the following week to get you ready for the stretch run. We'll talk about playoff runs and what needs to be done on there as well. Me and Kevin in different leagues are in that playoff battle, trying to make sure we earn that spot into the playoffs. So we'll discuss that going into it as well. But there will be plenty of other content coming out for you on the Belly Up Sports Network. Belly Up Fantasy Live football show live every Tuesday. There will be no break there, so keep coming out for that one. This Tuesday, we'll be back talking running backs galore in that episode. So make sure you tune in Tuesday night, wherever you listen to this podcast, unless you're listening to the podcast itself versus the YouTube or the social media. In that case, you got to look somewhere different. But everywhere else, it's the same. Belly Up Fantasy Live football and the Belly Up Fantasy Live baseball show available from the Belly Up Sports Network there. This week, I've also got another show coming out on Thursday. My dad and I do the Sports Stove football show. We are talking, I think we're talking NFC North this week, NFC North. And so we've been previewing the NFL divisions. So make sure you check that out as well. And you can always find me online at Sports Stove on Twitter and Instagram. Also, Kevin, what do you got going on this week?
Well, it's been a pretty busy week for me. As I dropped my quarterback rankings this week. And Thursday, I was on with Dustin and Dan. We had a Seahawks sessions that we talked about several subjects, including shark movies, if you believe it or not. But that's something that's going to be going on going forward every Friday. We'll be talking Seahawks and a whole lot more. So you might want to check that out. As you mentioned, Tuesday is the football show. And then Saturdays, I talked with Ryan and also Dustin on that show on the No Credential Required. We talked some baseball. We talked about which is the sorriest fan base, is it New York Mets or Yankees? And so you'll definitely want to check that out. And tomorrow, I will have my top 30 ranked wide receivers in PPR. So you can look forward to that. And so there's a lot going on you can check me out on Twitter, Kevin62, WILSCA. So I'm out there.
Yeah, and there's great baseball content, not just fantasy-wise, but also Major League Baseball. When you sit there and you look at bellyupsports.com, there's articles coming out. I think we're actually bringing on a new writer soon also.
I heard that.
More content coming your way there, which is a great time to do it, when you get into the All-Star break. I dropped a Brewers trade article last week at some point out there. It's still out there on bellyupsports.com looking at potential candidates, trade candidates for Milwaukee as well. So try to keep those things out there. And then, of course, fantasy football is right around the corner. So there's tons of fantasy articles going out right now, rankings especially,
That's
going
right.
out on the bellyupsports.com website.
Tight ends went out just the other day.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
and,
we had
and you did what was it? You did wide receivers? Is that what you
wide receivers and tight ends last week.
So you did both of those. Okay. So there you go. And like I said, I got wide receivers of my own tomorrow.
Yep. Yeah. And then quarterbacks dropped today from Brian as well. So he's got his quarterback. So now we got 2 quarterback rankings you can compare as well, with Kevin and Brian's on there too. So lots of good stuff.
And we had some good discussion about quarterbacks this past Tuesday, and including some blasphemy coming out of my mouth. Yeah. So you definitely want to check that out.
Very much so. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Like I said, we'll take next week off from the Fantasy Baseball podcast, but we will be back after the All-Star break and to break it down the following Sunday, which is the 20th, I believe, breaking that down for you as well. So stay tuned to there, and then just keep up on social media at Kevin62WILSEA for Kevin, at Sports Stove for me. We might be dropping some extra fantasy content with us not having a show next week. That might be out there on the social world or even the bellyupsports.com website as well. We sure appreciate you tuning in. Thank you to Geek. Thank you to Righteous Felon Jerky. And of course, as always, to all of our friends and cohorts over at Belly Up Sports Media as well. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great week and enjoy home run derbies and all-star games and all those good things. Right. Have a good one.